Howdy, guys. It's Boltarian coming to you again using my goofy photo booth on my MacBook. I'm just testing it out. I've never seen this function on it before, and so I'm doing something kind of stupid here. You can let me know if it's annoying to you or not. So, the topic for today is how do you get treated as a travel nurse? When you're traveling to new places and you're going to new hospitals and you're the new guy on the block or gal on the block every few months, how do you get treated? Some people ask me that. They're concerned that if they leave their staff position and where they have their friends and, they're established, the management knows them and the doctors know them and they kind of have their little niche there. So people worry. They go off, they go travel somewhere else. It's fun to travel. It's cool to see all these new places. But will they get treated nicely? Will they be treated badly? So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. What I typically ask people when they suggest that you may not get treated well as a travel nurse or, treated badly, I ask them, how are you treated as a staff nurse? How do you interact with your coworkers now as a staff nurse? Are you argumentative? Do you have trouble with time management, which gets on other people's nerves? Do you work as a team player? Do you help out other people? Do you collaborate with other people well? Are you abrasive? Do you like to argue? Do you push your perspectives on people? If you do any of those type of things, you're going to have a lot of trouble as a travel nurse, and probably as a staff nurse too. People put up with it probably a little bit more as a staff nurse because they know that you're there permanently and they just need to make peace with you. As a travel nurse, you don't have that luxury. They don't have to make peace with you. They know you're temporary and they know that they're permanent. So if you have an abrasive personality or you just don't behave friendly with a lot of people, you don't work well as a team player, then they probably are not going to be very nice to you, and they probably are going to be more prone to ice you out, essentially, give you the cold shoulder, and could make your time there at that hospital less comfortable than you'd like it to be. But the upside of that is, do you have good work relationships with your fellow nurses now, as a staff nurse? If you do, then chances are you will have good relationships with the other nurses when you go travel. Nurses are typically good people. They're people. They're people, I guess you could say. We usually work well with other people and other nurses and patients and doctors. And so as long as you're not, getting in people's faces and, pushing political and religious ideas on people and arguing or being hard to get along with, you'll probably get along with most people just fine. So you've got the personality thing down. Say you're very personable, you get along well with people, you don't have much trouble as a staff nurse. I'd say, 75% of the people that you interact with enjoy you. There will be no one that has 100% of people that like you and always get along with you. But I'd say if you've got 75% or higher amount of people who like you, you're pretty good. So those are out of the way. In general, how is just every travel nurse perceived by a hospital beyond the personality? They're going to be perceiving you as someone who's filling in a gap for them. You are expected to be flexible. You are expected to be helpful. You are expected to come in and say, what days are you short? I'll work those days. What shifts do you need me on? Do you need me to work night shift? Okay, I'll work night shift. Do you need me to do day shift? Sure, I'll do day shift. Now, not necessarily, rotating out every couple days, day shift, night shift. I just mean some people refuse to work night shift and some people refuse to work day shift in general. You don't want to do that as a travel nurse. You want to be able to tell them, I prefer day shift, but for you guys, I'll work night shift if you need me to. That's what they want to see. And if you do that, then you will find that they do more for you. You will be treated better by that hospital. Management and administration and the other staff nurses are going to be nicer to you. They're going to help you out more. They're going to try and do what they can to help you and be there for you if they sense you're there to really help them and give them relief. Because you have to remember, the whole reason you're even there is just because they're so short that they're needing to pay a higher pay to a travel nurse to come in and fill in their gap. So if you show up and you've got all these demands, you won't do this, you don't float, you won't work night shift, you only work 36 hours a week, you won't help out with any overtime, you don't work on Saturdays and Sundays. If you never take, say in the ICU, where you're only typically supposed to take 2 patients, if you come in saying I refuse to ever have a 3rd patient, those type of things will be what gets a bad reaction from people at that hospital. That's when staff, doctors, fellow nurses, management, that's when they'll really they'll start to treat you as an outsider and even possibly cancel your contract if you're so disruptive or you're so hard to get along with. They can cancel your contract, and they have done it for some nurses. I've never had it done myself, but have known it to be done before. So you want to come in with a positive attitude, to be polite and nice and helpful. Another factor that you have to consider when you're traveling is the type of hospital you're going to. If you're going to a giant hospital that's, I'd say, 600 beds or more, that's a huge, level 1 trauma center that has maybe 120 travelers at any given time in their hospital floating all around, and they have tons and tons of staff everywhere. Those kind of hospitals, you'll be more likely to become just a number, as a travel nurse. People will kind of sense that you're a traveler. They're used to lots of travelers at their hospital. They're not going to really spend much time investing in you or getting to know you or asking about your weekend and things like that, because they're used to people constantly traveling in and out of their hospital, and then they're there and then they're gone. So they're kind of, they're burnt out by travelers, I guess you'd say. They know that you're going to leave them, so they're not going to really invest much in you or who you are or whatever. Not saying that they're rude to you or mean to you, but at bigger places like that, they're not going to be as likely to say, hey, add me on Facebook, or hey, do you want to go out after work to, grab a beer or something. They're going to be less involved with you. Now, at smaller hospitals, you'll have a lot more of that family, community atmosphere, especially if you travel to the Southeast, Texas, all the way over to, I'd say, Florida and those type areas in the Southeast, which is where I was raised. The type of people in general at those places are very friendly and very involved in people's lives, and it's just the culture. So you go to a smaller hospital, like a 200 or 300 bed hospital, a level 2 or level 3 trauma center. At those kind of facilities as a traveler, they'll take you in as their own. They'll ask you to stay as a full-time staff member. They'll ask you to keep re-upping your contracts and stay with them. They'll be interested in your family and your friends and what's going on in your personal life. They're a lot more involved with you. Of course, that all sounds great, but at the same time, those facilities a lot of times may not pay as much, and they also may not have as much staff as in assistants and techs and secretaries and things like that. So you'll probably have to take a harder workload when you're at those kind of places. So it's a give and take. But as far as interacting with other people and how you're treated as a travel nurse, the bigger the hospital, the less personal, the more of a number that you are, and you're really not considered that important to them. You'll be there and gone before they know it, and they'll just have another set of travelers pretty soon, so they don't mind. Whereas at smaller community hospitals, you're going to be much more a part of, like a surprise guest at their Thanksgiving dinner or something. It's a lot more involved. They may even buy you like a present as a going away thing when your contract ends. They'll be sad to see you go, things like that. So that's another thing to consider if you're interested in how you're perceived or treated as a travel nurse. Alright, so what kind of travel nurse will you be? We talked about personalities, we talked about small hospitals and big hospitals, and we talked about the way you act when you're at these hospitals, if you're helpful or if you're demanding. The other thing you have to realize is when you step in as a travel nurse, you are being scrutinized. The staff members immediately, right off the bat, they're going to be assessing how much you know clinically. Depends on what department you're traveling for. I only have ICU experience, so I can tell you with ICU nurses, they're going to test your advanced hemodynamic critical care knowledge. They're going to test your knowledge on machinery and ventilator settings and advanced interventions, things like that. They will quiz you. They will ask you questions. You'll know that you're getting these questions asked to you, and you'll know that they're assessing to see how smart you are. If they deem you not smart, they're probably going to write you off. They're probably going to suggest to the manager to not ask you to re-up your contract, and they will probably give you very easy patients as your patient load because they don't think you're competent enough to take more advanced cases. Now, it's different when you're on a medical floor. I'm sure that they still probably assess your medical skills and things like that, but it's probably not to that same degree. But anyway, so you will be assessed for that. You'll be assessed about how flaky you are, because sadly there are some travel nurses that are just flaky people. They travel nurse because they can't get along with people anywhere. They get stationed at a hospital as a staff nurse, and they get either fired, or the staff is so mean to them that they don't stay. So you get those kind of travel nurses. Sometimes you get people who have burnt a lot of their bridges in the area that they used to live in, and they continue to burn bridges everywhere they go. So they just decide to travel, because then it doesn't matter if you burn your bridges because you're constantly moving. Um, so a lot of these hospitals, they get used to those type of people. They get used to some of these random travelers who are, not as not the kind of people that you would really want around. So they're going to assess you. They're going to analyze you. They're going to try and figure you out right off the bat. So don't be surprised if you kind of get asked questions to test you, and don't get insulted, and don't think that they're being mean or rude. They're honestly just doing their due diligence to make sure that you're competent and you are taking care of their patients properly, and you're someone they can rely on. Once they've decided that you can take care of these patients and that you are competent, they'll trust you, and then you'll move past that point, and they'll know that you're good. And the MDs will do this too. This isn't just the nurses and the managers who will be asking you questions and testing you. It's going to be the medical doctors, and the PAs and the NPs and stuff that'll be leaving their patients in your care. They're going to be checking with you to see how much you know, and if you're competent. So that's something to consider when you first get to a hospital, and kind of the interaction that you'll have with staff there, which is a little different. I guess you probably get analyzed too as a staff nurse, but probably not as quick, and it's not as rapid fire. It feels like as a travel nurse, your first couple days at a hospital, you will constantly have everybody asking you questions that or kind of like double-ended questions to assess to see if you know things. Of course, they're not outright handing you a quiz paper that you fill out, so it's kind of manipulative questions that you can tell they're trying to get to see how much you know and how much you don't know. So that's something to consider too when you first show up at a hospital as a travel nurse. So the end caveat here is that I told you to be helpful. I told you to come in and have a good attitude, and to be a team player, and to be polite, and offer whatever services you can to them within reason. So I told you to do all those things. The caveat to all that is, be aware that they will probably push you to see how much you're willing to take. Not all hospitals will do this, but in general, from what I've found as a travel nurse, is a lot of places will. They will see how much you're willing to take, how many patients are you willing to take, how many days a week are you willing to work, how much are you willing to be inconvenienced by them. Are you willing to swap days? Are you willing to work every weekend? Can they get you to work night shift one week and day shift another week? Because if they can get you to do it, they will get you to do it. The hospital is there to pay you more money than they're paying their other staff nurses, and they're expecting a different kind of level of service out of you from the other people. Now, I'm not saying that you have to give that to them, because it's not necessarily right. It's not right that they would expect you to rotate, night shift or day shift, or you would work every weekend when no one else on the unit has to work every weekend. It's not fair to you to expect you to take the max patient load every single day, so while the other nurses don't take the max load. So that's the boundaries they're going to push you on. They're going to see what you're willing to do. I had one hospital, I was already working like 50 hours a week for this facility, and the manager even said, like, come on, you're young, you can work 65 or 70, and was literally asking me, like, can I work that many? Am I going to work? She was pushing me to work that many hours. I did not work that many hours. There is a point where you have to stand your ground. You have to say, look, I'm here to be helpful. I'm here to be here for you guys, but this is my license, and this is also my personal life. I can't just work 65 hours a week and literally not do anything but eat, sleep, and work the whole week long. You'll crash and you'll burn out. So anyway, you'll come across that sometimes. So be prepared for that as a travel nurse. They know that your contract has an end date. They're not worried about you being burnt out. They're not concerned about if you're going to complain to management or something about them, because you're a traveler. You're going to be there and then you're going to be gone, and they're just not concerned about it. So I mean, it's business. Healthcare is a business, and so it's not as nice as you would like it to be. As a staff nurse, they have to worry about whether you are happy there. And of course, they don't want you to quit as a staff nurse. Whereas as a traveler, that's just not part of their concern. So you have to have a clear line of where in the sand where you say, okay, I'm willing to go this far out of my way to help you, and I'm willing to bend over backwards to be good for you guys, but I'm not going to be completely taken advantage of and treated badly. So you'll find yourself having to say sometimes no, and just simply saying no, and you don't have to justify it, and you don't have to try and make somebody like you after you've said it. You may have to make them not like you after you've told them no, but there's a point where you just have to stand up for yourself. So just be prepared to be able to do that. If you're too timid to be able to do that, or you're afraid to stand up for yourself, that's going to be a problem for you as a travel nurse, because you are an independent contractor. You kind of work for yourself. And so if you're not willing to say no, you're going to be taken advantage of, and you're going to have a lot worse time than you would if you found out a way to be able to tell people no. So anyway, I hope this video was helpful for you guys and kind of give you an idea of what it's like to be a travel nurse in the sense of clinically and at the hospital, and not in your off time but in your actual work time, what it's like to be traveling. So if you have any further questions, hit me up in the comments or on my Twitter. And I put together a video at the very end of this of some stuff here in Gatlinburg. My family came up last weekend and we kind of goofed off and went around and did stupid stuff. So anyway, I hope you liked the video, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.